To the second session of the third semester 2022. Today we are going to continue with the last week's topic, and we're going to work on another topic, which is the ethical aspects of market research and consumer behavior. And before we move on, I'm pretty sure that everyone is excited about the first knowledge test / online activity that is going to take place today, later on in a lecture. So I would like to share with you where that link is located. So if you look at the front content of our unit, you will notice that in this first section are announcements, and the dummy test, which was available until today, was located there as well. But now we're moving to week 2. And in week 2, we can see that the activity is visible. And if you click on that activity, you just bear with me for a second. So there is the activity. And activity will be available later on. So today we're going to have a little break during the session when you're going to finish the activity and report back how was this experience, whether there were any particular issues. So we will try to finish this before the end of the session, so you will be able to communicate with me and let me know if there are any particular issues. How you're going to deal with the activity. You basically click on this link and you can open up a new tab, which gives you very clear instructions when the specific activity is available, how many attempts you have, when it's going to be open, and when it's going to be closed. So the time limitation for this activity is 15 minutes. And it says here, this quiz is not currently available. The reason is that because the quiz will be available at 4 o'clock. So if you click on a particular activity and it's not open, the reason is because it's going to be open at a particular time. And as you can see, the instructions are clearly saying when that time is. So if you look at here, it's today at 4 p.m. And for those that are not able to finish it during the session, it's going to remain open until midnight. Please note that you have only one attempt. That means once you start the activity, you can't go back and re-enter. You just have to finish it all, right? Is that all clear? Yep. Okay, good. Right. The activity is not very difficult. It's based on the last week's session, and the materials for the last week are available in the last week folder. You will notice that the materials, apart from the lecture slides about the assessments that we examined together, and the textbook, the version from the publisher, so these are the PowerPoint slides from the publisher, features some other aspects such as suggested reading materials, and also links to either video case studies, small bite lectures, large lectures like 1 hour or longer, or particular reports, business reports or stories. What we are seeing here is that the textbook, which is available in a hard copy or electronic version from the publisher, but also you can borrow a copy from the library, the content is supplemented with other sources. So you are not limited to reading the textbook only. You can read the suggested materials, you can read the journal articles. So let's see what the suggested reading is for this week. If we click on that link, you will notice that it takes you to this text. It's in a PDF format. It's downloaded for your convenience, and it's a journal article which is probably part of the learning journey of every master level student. So you're no longer limited only to textbooks. You have to expand your usage of sources, so not only the textbook, but other sources, which are usually published materials in the realm of a particular topic. In this case, we're talking about consumer behavior and the latest findings in this field. Okay, Sangam, could you please switch on your camera and ask your question in a different form, because I'm not sure what are you asking here. It's really, there are no class discussions, so I'm not sure what are you asking about. Can you please switch on your camera, Sangam? Hello,
Yes,
Sangam.
Hi.
Hi, how is it going?
How much
Can you
percentage
rephrase your
activities
question?
covered?
So, sorry, which assessment are you referring to?
This class assessment activities.
Yes, yes.
How much
What is the
covered? How much
question?
percent?
Okay, so this class, today's class activity could be 1% or 2%. The overall value of all activities in this semester is 20% of the overall mark, but each activity weights differently because some activities may have more than one chapter, some activities may have only one single chapter. So the value varies, but you will see the value of each question when you click and you enter the actual quiz.
Okay,
Does it make sense? Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So there is no discussion section used for this. You only enter this activity and you answer the questions within that activity. So there are no discussions. You basically have to choose the answers. Yeah. Thank you guys for assisting with the additional answers. That is very helpful. Thank you for that. Okay, are there any questions in regards to the quiz, which will be available later on today?
Yes, teacher. I couldn't see the interview of the Why We Buy.
You couldn't see the video, okay?
Yeah, because it's not available for non-registered people. So I requested to my school, but not respond to me yet.
Yeah, just a second. Okay, so here is the thing about HS Talks. Just let me share the screen. You have to log in by using your student email account. Did you do that?
Yeah, I requested to IMC.
No, you don't have to request anything from IMC. Let me show you what I mean. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. The screen looks like this. Let me just enlarge it. And you will notice here that it has a little icon, which is saying you have limited access. That means that you have to log in. So you will notice that I'm using my IMC email account. And when I log in, you will notice that this icon has changed.
The Henry Stewart program.
Let me stop this. You will notice that the icon has changed. It means that I am currently logged in under my name using my IMC email account. And the system is recognizing me, right? The previous version was your access is limited. It means that I wasn't logged in and the system didn't recognize me. So what you need to do is the first time you go there, you put in your student email account, which has top.edu.au or imc.edu.au extension. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And you create your own password. And from then on, you can keep being logged in. You can tick that option, or you can just type in your password every time you log in. It really depends whether you're using one computer or you're changing computers. If you're changing computers, I suppose you will have to type in your password. If you're using one single PC, you can just keep being logged in and the computer will memorize your password and will allow you, the system will allow you to log in under your name. So once you're logged in under your student account, you basically have access not only to those specific videos that I have listed them because they're specifically relevant to the content of the topic, but you can also explore the whole database, right? And the database is very useful. So it's a business database, which allows you to look at different lectures and bite size. Bite size means smaller, few minutes long videos or lectures about particular topics, or full-length lectures, which are an hour or longer. But you can look at topics in finance, in management, in accounting, in financial management, in general management, in human resources, in marketing, in consumer behavior, in biobehavior, in any kind of topic. And the database is very useful. And I strongly suggest to students that they do search for their own options there, because it provides a plethora of lectures from lecturers around the world. So you're not only limited to what we are teaching here in class, but you can expand beyond that, listening to some other lectures from other schools, right? It's like being plugged into the World Wide Web of the academic world, and you can explore whatever other universities are doing as well. I think it's an amazing experience. I didn't have that when I was a student, right? And I think that today students have this amazing opportunity to expand their horizons much more through this collaboration. So the Henry Stewart Talks, or HST, collection is very, very valuable, and I strongly recommend that you watch those videos that I have selected for you, but that you go beyond that and do your own search. I can show you how to do the search on your own. Okay, so if we go back to this site, you will notice that beyond the topic which is displayed here at the bottom side of the slide, we also have an option where you have listed very similar topics beneath it, which are giving you hints if you might be interested in a specific topic and beyond. But if you're not sure that any of these actually are useful, you can click here and it gives you another listing. So you will notice here at the bottom that you have 3 dots. So previously we were observing the first option. Now we are at the second, and we have the third one left. So what we are saying is you basically can look at these, and if none of these are relevant, let's do our own search. So how you can do that is by popping your key search terms here. Just let me move this one. You can pop them. Just a second, this one is bothering me. Okay, into this section here. Okay, so let's say we want to search something else. Let's say we want to search something about work conditions. Work conditions are a topic relatable to human resources, and these are the options. Work conditions are giving us a plethora of topics: what makes a great team, health effects of restructuring and downsizing, measuring the intensity of hazards and their impact, how to create a fair and equal absence management policy, workforce planning and talent management. So you will notice that there are many different lectures. They're not necessarily strongly relatable to what you're looking for. So you will have to spend a little bit of time to dig through all that material and find what you are specifically interested in. But you also have an opportunity to read about relatable topics, maybe not exactly the topic that you were looking for, but relatable topics. And these video lectures come in short and long format. So you will notice that by each and one of them, it clearly says how long it is. So 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 32 minutes. And this is an indication how long time you will spend in front of the screen, obviously, watching that content. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, all good. So you really don't need IT to help you with this. You just need to type into your student email account and create the password the first time you log in, right? The next time you log in, if you save your password, you don't even have to enter it. But I would put that password somewhere handy around your desk. So when if you're changing computers, for example, if you are using your phone instead of the laptop or a desktop, you may need to type in your password again. So it's not going to recognize you immediately, but if you type in your student email, so basically that extension top.edu.au or imc.edu.au is recognized by the system, and then you have to create your own profile. And after that, you're free to use it for the end of your studies.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I did this before. If you tell me, you tell me like that, and then maybe I did wrong. I tried again.
No. The system. So after a while, for example, during the semester break, the system clears up all cookies and it's not recognizing you anymore. So you may have to, log in again at the beginning of each semester. Also, if you have changed your device or you have logged in from a different location, it may have recognized you as a different user, right? So again, you might have to do it again. I don't think this is something that you can't handle on your own, but if you prefer to do it with the assistance of the IT, that's fine. But if you're in a hurry, to do something quickly, I think you can handle it on your own. You don't need to wait for the IT.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sweetie, for sharing that with us. And I hope this was helpful for other students that are having the same issue or might have the similar issue in the future. And again, I highly recommend this database. And Batsek, did you find something interesting? Because you said you were using it before. Did you find this database very useful?
Yeah, it's very, very useful. Highly recommended.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thanks. Okay, are there any other questions regarding this content or any other content in that sense? Okay, so I would like to recommend that you all watch this a little bit long. It's 1 hour and 12 minutes long lecture. And as you can see, they're not very interactive as our lectures are, so you can't stop or you can't change the view and you can't ask questions. However, they are so useful because they provide you with literally another lecture from another lecturer from another institution, and that provides you with different views, because all of the academics are specialized in particular topics, and you can learn from someone who's an expert in particular topic much more than you can learn something from someone who's only teaching that topic, right? So for example, my expertise is consumer behavior in technology adoption and online sharing of information, or so-called electronic word of mouth. So I know more about that topic than about anything else. So you would watch my lecture rather in my area of expertise than somebody who only knows very superficially about that, right? But I'm not an expert in financial management, right? So you wouldn't want to listen to me teaching you about financial management because this is not my area of expertise, right? So in a similar way, you'll have your area of expertise. So you do understand that you know more about that expert area than anything else, but somebody else doesn't know anything about that, but they know about something else. So this gives you an opportunity to actually cherry pick and listen to really high level of expertise from those academics that are giving presentations here. So good luck with your search. I hope you're going to find some very, very valuable stuff there. Okay, so just to give you an idea, each of these lectures
Steward
start
program
with the introduction, and you will notice here that each slide has a topic, and you will also notice that they are interactive. So if you want to skip this introduction section, what you can do is simply, just bear with me, just simply go, what is consumer behavior? So you will notice that it skips the first 46 seconds and takes you to this slide.
With a definition of the field of consumer behavior. It's particularly important for us to take a close look at this definition because for many years, people working in the field, both as practitioners and as academics, have tended to confuse consumer behavior with the much narrower focus on buyer behavior.
So as you can see, it's a very detailed lecture, quite useful, insightful, and you will benefit from watching it. Okay, are there any questions regarding the weekly activity? So is there anything that I didn't explain there and that you would like to know about the activity that is going to be open at 4 o'clock today? Anyone? No, all good, all clear? Excellent. Okay. Are there any questions in regards to the assessments for those that were not here last week? Is there anyone here who would like to ask a question? Someone who is not familiar with the details of our assessments?
Yes, Professor, last week I was not in the class.
Hi, Diamond. Is your camera working?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Diamond. Okay, so I'm assuming you didn't introduce yourself last week, did you? Because
Yeah, my module was not updated.
right. Okay, Diamond. So what we did last week, first of all, cool name. I love your name. And second of all, we have sort of talked about how we're going to work in this unit. So one of the first rules is that when you're asking a question, please switch on your camera. And this is also an opportunity for others to see you, and maybe you can shine in regards to particular skills. I mean, maybe you're a really good speaker, or you have a really analytical mind, or you're good at drawing conclusions and creating recommendations, something like that. Unfortunately, we're doing this online, and this limits our social interactions face to face. So we have to take the best advantage of this technology where we are shown via cameras and show everybody else how good we are, because we are having a really large portion of the assessments as group work. And in order for students to learn about other students, they can either introduce themselves, which is what you're going to do right now, right? And another option is that through the commentary, you can put your comments into the chat section, or you can switch on your camera and say something when we are discussing topics. Others will see how brilliant you are, and they might invite you into their team, right? So it also creates this sense of knowing others, because we can see their faces and we can hear their questions and etc. So take this as a spotlight opportunity to show everyone how brilliant you are. Okay, so we would like to know a little bit about your background. So what is your undergrad degree? What did you study before this? What are you expecting to gain from attending buyer behavior unit? And what are your plans for the future? I know that the second question, what are you expecting to gain from buyer behavior is somewhat redundant for students that are obliged to take this unit, right? So, students might say, I don't expect anything, I have to take this unit, right? But if you do have any assumptions or expectations, I encourage you to tell us about them. So go ahead, tell us about your background.
Yeah, in my college life, I studied about the chemistry, especially not from the management.
Right.
So I wanted to know about the business and management also.
Okay, and what are you enrolled into at the
But my
moment?
background is not strong about the management.
Sorry, but which
Sorry?
course you're enrolled into at the moment? Are you enrolled in
didn't-
Master of Marketing, Master of Business Administration? Which course you're enrolled into?
Yeah, Masters of Business Administration.
So MBA, right. And where are you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm here in Sydney.
Sydney, good. Okay, and where are you originally from?
Nepal.
Yes, but where in Nepal? I mean, everybody says the country, but there's so many areas of Nepal.
Yeah.
Are you from a city, particular city?
Near Kathmandu.
Near Kathmandu. Okay, lovely. Because there are a lot of students from Kathmandu, but because you are near Kathmandu,
Yeah.
I'm going to assume you're from another smaller city, right? or a town or a
Yeah.
village. So,
But I studied there in Kathmandu.
okay. So what are your plans once you graduate the course? What are you planning to do? Do you have any work experience?
Not it.
Not yet. Oh, okay. I strongly recommend that you gain some work experience, especially in Australia. It's really important that you have some work experience, even part-time, casual gigs are fine. And also gives you a lot of opportunities to work with people and to learn about the local culture. But beyond that, to learn about the way business is conducted in Australia. You will notice that the way business is done in Asia is very different to the way how business people think in Australia and how they do business. So yeah, my recommendation is go ahead and do some casual work. I know you're limited during the studies, but any kind of work which gives you a lot of contact with business people will be very valuable for your future career. So welcome to Buyer Behavior. We are going to repeat the assessments now, because obviously that's you, and there are some other students that obviously need to introduce themselves. Thank you, Diamond, for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, we have Mawish. Mawish, hello. Yes, of course. Please do introduce yourself. Can you please switch on your camera and tell us a little bit about yourself? Mawish, I don't think we can hear you or see you for that matter. Where is Mawish? Oh, Mawish, say something. I think there is something wrong. Guys, can you hear Mawish?
No.
No. Okay, Mawish, again, there is something wrong with your sound. I can hear a very faint background sound, but it's not clear. We can't understand what you're saying. You may need to find a different microphone or maybe headphones or something with a mic. Okay, so while Mawish is trying to fix her equipment, let's see if there is anyone else who wasn't here last week who would like to introduce themselves. Do you guys want me to read the names, or do you want to step in and tell us a little bit about yourself? So who wasn't here last week who would like to tell us a little bit about themselves? Anyone? Come on, guys. Is there anyone who didn't introduce themselves last week? Sibel, did you introduce yourself last week? Sibel Nemeth?
No, yes, no, teacher, sorry.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I don't know what's happening with my camera. You can see me?
No, we can't.
Oh, okay, you talk.
Okay, yeah, just go ahead.
My name is Mel. I'm from Brazil.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, I've lived in Australia 2 years. I started Master of Marketing. This is my second term. Yeah, what else? I don't know.
Okay, so what are your plans for the future once you graduate? What are you planning?
Yes, my graduate in Brazil with business with marketing, but 10 years ago. So now I'm starting for study again because I would like to stay here, but I don't have experience with marketing. In Brazil, I worked at bank, but I would like to find one job like marketing, social media. In Brazil, I worked with social media, bloggers, like that. And so now, at the moment, I'm just studying and working with cleaner. But
very good. That pays well, doesn't it? That is a really well-paid industry. Right.
Yeah, but I'd like in this area find one job. I may try to apply, but
you know what? There are a lot of Brazilians that are having businesses in Australia, so maybe you can look for that. Yeah, you can look that as an option. So that might be useful. Well, Sibel, great to have you with us, and we're happy that you have joined us today. Better late than never, as they say. And I will repeat the key points about the assessments for those students that were not here last week.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah,
No
I missed my first class, my timetable, some strong, and I'm started today. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so Sibel, I just want to remind you that you have to complete the first activity, which is going to open at 4 o'clock, which is focused on the last week topic. So this is really important to remember that you have to do. And this is the activity that I was showing on earlier. And I'm going to
this activity today, yes? Or
at 4 p.m. It's going to be open at 4 p.m. So every week we are going to have another activity which is reflective of the previous lecture. And today the activity is starting at 4 p.m. Okay, so we have another. Thank you, sweet.
Thank you.
We have another volunteer, Yipni Aouyang. Yipni, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hey. Hello, you can call me Alice.
Hi,
I'm currently
Alice.
in Hong Kong. So
hello,
actually
Alice.
hello. So I have been working as a sales for the past 5 years, 5 to 6 years. So but my bachelor degree was accounting. So I'm really interested in sales and marketing. So I would like to improve myself in this master course. So my major is Master of Marketing in IMC.
Right. Awesome. Good to have you with us. And are you still in a lockdown?
I think we are getting better now. So probably, hopefully, I can fly to Sydney maybe after July, I think. Yeah, or March, depends on the situation. But now still have like if you're entering Hong Kong, you still need 3 days of home quarantine. You can go out, but you are not allowed to entering the restaurant.
Right, any
now.
public spaces. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Well, good luck with the quarantine. Hopefully it will be finished soon, and we will be happy to welcome you to Australia. In the meantime, we can still Zoom and learn about each other via Zoom. Thank you,
Yes.
Alice. Alice, I believe you've sent me an inquiry and I've replied to your inquiry about, was it a specific issue that might affect your academic calendar? Was my explanation clear?
Yes. Yes, cool. Yes, because I was thinking to take one subject in this semester because I may have some health issue to deal with in this
Yeah,
semester.
yeah.
But now I already applied to the school, and the school allow me to take one subject only in this unit. So
Oh,
yes,
cool. Okay. So just make sure that you finish your assessments and then, you are
sure,
off,
sure.
off uh, from any kind of, so somewhere mid-February, you are done with all assessments and you don't have to worry about anything in this unit
Yes,
anymore.
sure.
So these are the benefits of this unit, that we don't have the final exam. So we basically
Mm.
finish everything in week 11 and you don't have to stress or worry about any additional assessments. So good to have you with us, Alice,
Okay, thank
and
you.
welcome to Buyer Behavior. Is there anyone else who wasn't here last week who would like to introduce themselves? I'm not going to force you guys. This is your chance to say a little bit about yourself so others can see you and maybe consider inviting you to their team. If you don't want to introduce yourself, then good luck forming your own team. Anyone? No? Okay. Let's go back to our assessments. So I'm going to share again the content of the slides that are already uploaded and available. So let me just tell you about these two emails. You will notice that there are two different types of email available here. My suggestion is that you use this one, the top one, if you want to have a really quick answer. If it's nothing urgent, you can use the IMC one, but if it's something urgent, please use the top email. If you want to have one-on-one consultations, we can arrange them before or after our sessions, but you have to book them in advance. So that means you have to send an email and then we can jump on the second Zoom link and have a consultation session at the time that fits us both. Okay, here is the content of the topic. So you will notice that introduction to consumer behavior and ethical issues are topics that are were discussed last week, and we are going to talk about it this week as well. And today in the weekly activity, which is obviously our next assessment, is weekly activities are coming in a form of online tests. They open at different times in each week. So each Monday, we don't have a fixed time when the activity opens. And you may say, oh, why is that? That's a bit confusing. Well, the reason is that I want to keep you on your toes, guys. I want to keep you engaged. And if you knew when the activity is, you may actually, be relaxed and not paying attention at all. This way, I will have your full attention, hopefully, and you will be focused on the content. Look, to be honest, nobody's ever going to ask you which mark did you get from buyer behavior unit, right? Or even with, how did you graduate? But they are going to ask you to show them what it is that you do know from buyer behavior. So for me, it's really important that you take away some knowledge from this unit. And believe me, marks are not important. It's more about you being able to apply this theoretical knowledge in practice. So hopefully that will be useful for those that are seeking for job opportunities in marketing. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about the weekly activities. They start from week 2, which is today, and will last until week 11. We're not going to have activities in some of the later weeks. So for example, in week, I think 9, we will skip an activity, and then week 10 as well. And this is mainly because as we are approaching the final major project delivery in week 11, people tend to be very, very stressed. So we are going to try and mediate that by having less to do, but we have to complete all of those activities. Oh, here is the tricky part. If you miss more than 2 activities, you will not be able to pass the unit. So why is that? The weekly activities are designed as a substitute for the final exam. So basically, we don't have a final exam in this unit, but we do have these weekly activities. So if you miss more than 2, you basically have failed to take the final exam. And that means that you will have to do the additional assessment, or you will have to do the resit supplementary exam. Believe me, final exams are such a nightmare. First of all, because you have all those chapters packed up into one single knowledge test. You have to log into the system. You have to show who you are. You are not allowed to use any notes or to browse the web. All of the things that you are allowed to do in your weekly activities or your substitutes for the final exam, you're not allowed to do that in the final exam. So I think it's worth it completing these beforehand, so you don't have to do the resit final exam. Okay, weekly activities. Starting from today, today's test is very short. It's 15 minutes long, and it's about chapter number 1. Okay. Other activities are the research project. The in-class presentation is going to be in week 5, and you will form groups that will continue for the next stage of the project, which is in week 11, where you're going to have a group presentation and report. You will notice that the first assessment, the in-class presentation, is only presentation. There is no written assignment attached to this assessment. Only in-class presentation, where each student will conduct 2 interviews with consumers about the given topic, and this will receive the feedback form of suggestions how you can move forward in the next stage of your project. So for the next stage of the project, the marketing recommendations based on the findings of your interviews is going to be the major project that will be presented in week 11. So let me remind you again, what happens in week 5 is based on the interviews that you will be conducting with consumers, and those interviews will be 2 per each student. So if your team has 5 team members, you will have to conduct 10 interviews. If your team has 6 team members, you will have to conduct 12 interviews. So each student is obliged to complete 2 interviews with consumers about the specific topic. We will introduce the topic today, but beforehand, I can tell you it's a very interesting topic, very controversial, and I hope you will enjoy it. We have a hand from a buyer. Buyer?
Yeah, it's me.
Hi,
Yeah,
sweetie.
hi.
Hello. There's 2 of you. Wow.
Yeah, it's us. Just want to make sure that today's is available from the 4 p.m., right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I will announce it one more time around 4 p.m. and I will say, now you have 15 minutes to complete the activity. So I'm not going to leave you hanging there. I'm going to say now is the time to take the activity.
Got it. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Right. Is there anyone else with a question? Or something that may not be clear?
Yes, I have a question, teacher.
Hi, Rafael. You are new, aren't you?
I am.
I am going to get you on the spot and tell us a little bit about yourself while you are there.
Well, first of all, my camera is not working. I don't know why. I'm trying to problem.
Try to fix it for next time.
Yeah, I'm trying, but I don't know what happened. It's
okay.
not...
We can see a little picture, which is supposed to be your avatar, but I can tell you that the background water, it's taking huge space, so we can see you in some natural environment there.
Yeah, it's in Canada, this picture.
Oh, lovely. Nice.
I used to live there.
Oh, really? Where did you live in Canada?
I lived first in Toronto, and then Vancouver.
Which one did you like better?
Well, Vancouver for sure, because Toronto is too cold.
Oh, and too hot during summers, isn't it? It's really, really hot at summer.
Yeah, last summer I took like 45 degrees for 3 days.
Really bad, isn't it? So Vancouver is your favorite. Okay. So I reckon you would love Tasmania in Australia. Tasmania
Yeah,
is very similar to Vancouver.
yeah, they told me about it. Tasmania and also New Zealand.
Yeah, but you know what? New Zealand is not part of Australia yet.
Yeah, I know.
Although some people are making jokes about the union between these two, but not one country yet. Okay, so Rafael, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my background back in Brazil, it's all about, I studied cuisine.
Okay.
And beer. I used to run my own business.
Right. Did you have a brewery?
No, I used to have a bar, but it's specialized in craft beer.
Okay.
That's why I choose marketing, because I wasn't the person responsible for the marketing part, and I back in that time I felt a lack of marketing. And in the future, I would love to have another business again, run my own business. And I think it's really important to know more about marketing, business, and stuff.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I hope you're going to find buyer behavior useful. We're definitely going to try and teach you some of the really relevant theoretical knowledge and some really useful skills. So good luck to both of us, to us teaching you and to you using that in your business later on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rafael.
I'm sure that the class would be amazing.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. Is there anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The test, usually how many questions are the test, or depends?
There are only few questions, and while the test is 15 minutes long, you can finish it quicker. You can probably finish it in 5 to 6 minutes. Please keep in mind, Rafael, and now the drum roll, da, 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 da. It's an open textbook, open web test. Yay! How good is that, right? So you can actually look for answers wherever you want. You can look through the lecture slides, the textbook, you can search online. Don't copy paste, okay? If you copy paste, the system immediately recognizes that as plagiarism. But if you have to write a long answer, then use your own wording. You will find some questions very easy and some a little bit more complicated and comprehensive. And there is a reason, because we're always trying to mix easy questions with medium range and very difficult questions. This allows students to classify themselves. So some students just want to pass, for example, and they just want to go, through easy questions. Some students want to learn more and they really want to upscale their knowledge in particular areas, and they may be able to answer those a little bit more difficult and comprehensive questions. But those activities are actually very simple and straightforward. There are no trick questions, so you don't have to worry about that. As I mentioned, open textbook, open web approach. You can use whatever you want, and they are specifically designed to help you in acquiring knowledge and learning things. Right. So instead of you memorizing a definition, which you are never going to repeat to anyone ever again, who wants to know whether you can memorize the definition and remember it after so many years of studying? That is not relevant knowledge. We really want to see whether you understand the theory and you're able to apply that theory in practice. So this is the system set in place where I'm examining where you are with your knowledge acquisition. So for example, if many students are failing in particular question or in particular area, then I will go back and repeat that topic, just to make sure that everyone is, fully informed, well educated in that topic. But for you, this test is also an opportunity to see how much did you study and whether you have to go back reading the textbook and the available readings as well. So it works both way, for me to see where you are, guys, and whether I need to, improve something in my teaching or go back to some topics. And for you guys, it's actually saying, how much you have to work, or maybe go back. So basically in each of the units you're enrolled, you will notice that the unit outline states that you have to spend something like 10 hours each week of studying, and that includes about 2 to 3 hours of lecture time, which is basically interactive time with the instructor, and then you have 6 to 7 hours of study time on your own. And if you miss 1 week on that study time, it will actually accumulate on the coming weeks. So it really makes sense that you do that regularly, at least for the next 11 weeks. It's only 11 weeks long semester, so it's not such a big deal. So you are actually fully informed. And, by the way, you guys are paying for this, right? So it should be worth your money to spend a little bit of time and study this stuff, because it will be very useful later on in your professional careers. So any other questions, Raphael?
Teacher?
No, that's everything. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Raphael. Yes, Yingzu, go ahead.
Yeah. Can I ask how many people in one group?
Right, yes, you can. So we explained that last week, so I'm going to do the same explanation, although I do expect students to go through the recorded sessions if you didn't attend the session. So let me repeat this. Depending on the number of enrollments, we may vary with the size of the groups. At the moment, we are going with 5 members. But that might be changed to 6 members or even 7 if we have too many students. So basically, until the census date, students are able to enroll or unenroll from units. And if we have too many students, we have to make larger groups. The reason is because we only have limited number of hours per each session. So when the last major project is due, we won't have enough time if we have too many groups, right? So we have to limit the number of groups, and hence we might have to increase the number of members. So at the moment, we are going with 5.
Okay. So if you change, you will let us know.
I will definitely let you know, guys. And let me just remind you that everything that is changing, like new due dates or postponement of assessments or changes regarding the group work or a membership of teams and etc., all of these announcements are coming through the Moodle announcement to your student email account. So it is essential that you are actively using your student email account and you are regularly checking those announcements, because they're all going to arrive to email box via Moodle announcements. At the same time, I would like to mention, please don't place your questions into the discussion section of the Moodle, because I can't reply directly to you, right? So even if you post a question, I can't respond to that question. It makes sense that you send an email. And when you're sending an email, my suggestion is please use the top email account, because the top email account, this email account, I'm checking very, very frequently, and I will be answering very, very quickly. If you have a non-urgent inquiry, you can use the other email account, but basically use the top email account for every correspondence. So, Yingzu, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, sweetie. Did you introduce yourself? You did.
Yeah.
You're in Perth, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. How's the weather today?
It's hot.
Well, here it's very humid. We had something of a storm yesterday, so Yeah, a bit weird. Okay, guys, are there any other questions? Thank you for asking that question and clarifying that for everyone. Are there any unclear issues? If they're not, I'm going back to that slide. So let me just remind you one more time. Today, we will be talking about the topic for the first and the major project assessments. And again, we are starting with the weekly activity at 4 o'clock. The test will be open and will be open until midnight for those that are not able to finish it at 4 o'clock. But my suggestion is do it at 4 o'clock. And then if there are any particular issues, come back to me at 4:15 and let me know about those issues. So I hope that's all good. Mawish, I just wanted to check with Mawish whether her microphone is fixed and whether she's able to tell us a little bit about herself, or it's still not working. Mawish, how is your mic doing? Mawish, how is your microphone? Did you manage to fix it? Okay, probably not. Okay, let's go back. If there are no further questions regarding the activities, I can only suggest that you read the unit outline, which is providing more details about the assessments. Here is the timeline for our activities. So you will notice that, for example, today is our first activity, and we are basically going to at 4 o'clock, we are going to look at that activity and try to finish it. It's a very short activity, only a few questions, and you will need a few minutes, but you are given 15 minutes to complete that activity. The other relevant and very important weeks are week 5 and week 11. Week 5 for the first assessment, and week 11 for the second assessment. Please be mindful that the first assessment in week 5 only requires PowerPoint submissions, so 1 submission per team. And in week 11, you need a PowerPoint presentation plus the written report. And that is due at the end of semester. Okay, we've talked about the difference between consumer behavior and buyer behavior. And we also looked at changes that are occurring due to COVID-19 in buyer behavior. We looked at the benefits of neuromarketing and how we can learn to use particular knowledge in this area when creating marketing solutions. And we are going to move on now and talk about the topic continue to talk about topic from last week. Are we all good? Can we continue, guys?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for confirming. Right, so let's look at what affects consumer behavior. The first aspect is psychological core. The second one is the process of making decisions, which we are going to learn in more details later on in this semester. The third aspect is listed as the consumer's culture. And the fourth one is consumer behavior outcomes. So the psychological core can be defined through some psychological models that we are heavily relying on in consumer behavior. So as a study, you will notice that this subject has a lot of coverage of psychology, even economics, even management, even human resources. We are looking at sociology as a really important discipline as well. So everything that covers human activities and comes from social sciences are very important for us. So, for example, I gave you an example of color theory, which colors represent what in different cultures. And that color theory can be very useful, for example, when you are designing a particular ad or packaging for a particular product. So being mindful of all these aspects that we are mentioning here in class, because they might come useful eventually, if not for your assessments, then definitely in your professional careers. Okay, the process of making decisions is a very lengthy process that has several stages, and we're going to look into each stage of that process separately, and we will discuss, what and how we can do to impact consumer decision choices. So very often people think marketing is all about sales, how to make people buy products and services, but it's not. Very often marketing may not be focusing on the final results of selling products or services, but better informing consumers, providing additional information, or providing useful information, how they can better use those products and services or get better value for money. So marketing is not about selling things. The sales departments are in charge of that. And because marketing doesn't have any material outcomes, very often it's misunderstood by other departments, for example, accounting, what it is that marketing actually does. They're mostly spending the money, but they're not bringing in the money because the sales are doing that. The sales department are actually aggregating sales. And that's why this confusion comes. And very often you will find in a professional context that, for example, accountants and marketing people have a completely different mindset, and they think of some core elements of their business from different perspectives. So, for example, accountants are trying to save money, but in marketing, if you're saving money on some crucial activities, you're going to have very poor outcomes. So it's worth it investing money in the first place to have better results. But because you can't measure them very quickly or instantly, then this is rather confusing. When do you see the results of those marketing activities? So again, we will try to uncover the philosophy of marketing and try to link that knowledge with consumer culture. So consumer culture is something that may be affected by national cultures. We can say the consumers in China, for example, are different than consumers in Romania or consumers in Brazil or consumers in Argentina or consumers in New Zealand. Why? So they may be affected by the size of economy, availability of local infrastructure, transport, and some other specificities. Why? For example, consumers in China, because of their very busy lives, have a very strong culture of ordering food and bringing food in. But when it comes to specific holidays, you will find that whole family will get together and cook meals together. And it's really important. So you don't see Chinese going out for Christmas lunch or something equivalent, like, for example, New Year festival. People usually stay at home and cook dinners on their own. People, for example, in Romania may prefer to buy large quantities of food, but people in Brazil may prefer to buy small quantities of fast-moving consumer goods. So, for example, people in Romania may be doing shopping in large shopping centers outside of the cities and maybe buying large packages of toilet paper or washing powder, for example, 4 kilos of washing powder. But people in Brazil, for example, they don't go out to those outside of the city shopping malls. They prefer to buy in local stores, and they may be preferring to buy half a kilo of washing powder or even smaller single wash packages, sachets of washing powder. So again, we can see that specificities of consumer behavior come in different forms and shape, and we have to understand what drives consumers to behave like that, or how we can affect the way they're seeing things or the way they're doing things, and make them do things differently. Okay, so let's say something about New Zealand, because Rafael mentioned something about New Zealand. So, for example, people in consumers in New Zealand do not have IKEA stores, and therefore the do-it-yourself culture may not be as well developed as in some other culture. So, for example, consumers in China also don't like the aspect of do-it-yourself assembly of furniture, and also IKEA for the first time had to change their format of stores, and instead of having large shopping malls built outside of the large cities, now they're having smaller city format stores where people are coming in to see the furniture, and then to be competitive with the local manufacturers of furniture, they are delivering already assembled furniture to their stores. So we can see that the format of furniture is also smaller to fit into Asian style living or dwelling units, while, for example, consumers in New Zealand live in houses and they have large yards. People living in cities in Asian countries, and specifically in China, live in smaller units without any green spaces or areas. So they don't care about the outdoor furniture, but they do care about multifunctional indoor furniture of smaller format to fit their dwelling units. Okay, so again, we are going to learn more about these specificities, right? So the psychological core is looking at motivation, ability, and opportunity, and is very often affected by exposure to particular information, attention to relevant details, perception of specific messages, and comprehension of those messages in the context of potential sales of products and services. We're also looking at aspects of memory and knowledge. Memory is something we are heavily relying on when we are considering purchase of a product or service. And the first place we're going for information is our previous experience with a product. But if we can't find it there, then we go beyond that and we are looking at other sources of information where we can learn or acquire new knowledge about that product. So, for example, if you are looking to buy a new phone, and the first option for you would be to consider your old phone and say, hey, was I happy with the previous brand? Was it delivering? Was it worth it? The money I paid for it? Was it broken after a few days or a few months of usage, and etc.? If you are happy with a brand, you're definitely going to be able to recall that, and it will put that brand on the positive list, right? But what about products or services that we don't have any experience with, and we're not able to recall whether we were satisfied with our past purchase? So think about things such as space travel. None of us had an experience of traveling into space. So not only that we can't recall whether we were happy with a ticket or a service travel provider, but we also can't recall anyone who had a similar experience. So we can't ask people in our environment about their own experiences, and we can't use that as a source of information to get informed beforehand. So in some cases, we are actually forced to look outside of our circle of acquaintances to learn about certain products or services that were non-existing in the past. So we have to learn about them. And that takes us to the last point, which is forming and changing attitudes. For example, attitudes, at least some of them, have been formed way back in the past. So, for example, in your family, if binge drinking is perceived as a bad thing, it is very likely that this kind of behavior is going to be installed, and attitude towards or against drinking is going to be inherited from your parents. Or, for example, attitude about German cars. You know, sometimes if your parents appreciated German cars and would recommend them above any other brand of cars, then your later on in life attitude will be, I will always consider German cars as an option, and then all the other countries of origin to be put in a mix of options available. So formation, creation, and changes of attitude is also something that we are going to look at. So the process of decision-making contains several stages, and we are going to look at those stages and potentially try to explain how we can affect each and one of those stages of the consumer purchasing process. The consumer culture is very often impacted by the momentum of opinions of reference groups and some other social references. For example, if you belong to a particular sports club, it is very likely that you will not only feel the sense of belonging to the fans of that club, but you will very likely buy a dress of that club, or you know, any other kind of accessories that are going to visibly show your favorism of that club and being a fan of that club. At the same time, you will notice that in a business world, for example, people that are operating within the same industry, for example, managers, they all wear suits. And you will also notice that they wear either navy, dark blue, or black and gray suits, because this is the standard. Everyone in that surrounding, in that environment, dresses the same way. And therefore, it is expected that when you are coming to meetings, you are supposed to wear a suit as well. And peer pressure sometimes can be really, really strong. And we see that, for example, among teenagers, that specific brands of sneakers may be preferred in particular groups. And therefore, that peer pressure makes everyone wear the same brand of jeans or the same brand of sneakers, just because their friends are finding that brand to be very popular. So peer pressure is a really funny aspect, but quite easily observable and able to impact and influence. The other aspect is consumer diversity. We all come in different shapes and forms and different preferences, and also the size of household and so belonging to a particular social class based on the past education, the level of income, and also personal preferences. So the last point, values, personality, and lifestyle, can be something that can help us identify more finesses within market segments. So we can have a market segment of consumers that are vegans, for example, but that group of vegans is not only a group of vegans that defines them. Some of those vegans may be also heavily focused on recycling materials. Some of them may be focused on using food that only grows in their vicinity, for example, only 5 kilometers around them. So they only want to buy from local farmers. Some of them may be heavily focused on production of their own food. So it's not only that they're vegans, but they also want to eat homegrown food or only organic food. So again, even when we do manage to put consumers into large segments, there are always subdivisions of those segments, and we have to be well versed into consumer psychology to be able to identify those slices of larger market segment pies and identify their behavior. Okay, so the outcomes of specific consumer behaviors and issues that we are able to identify are basically symbolizing who we are as consumers. So there are specific signs that we are going to be able to read at the end of this course, and we are going to be able to identify specific behaviors. We can also see that our knowledge and understanding of consumer behavior will help us influence people better in their decision-making process. And we will also see that issues such as ethics and social responsibility may become really, really relevant when it comes to consumer groups, because consumers are not a passive bunch of people. Consumers are very, very actively thinking, researching, and looking at what it is that brands are doing. And based on that, they're deciding whether those brands are worth it, the money and time consumers are spending on them. Okay, so I am going to share with you now a video which is saying what's happening with the unsold inventory in a specific market. And we're basically looking at one of the largest online retailing platforms, the Amazon, and what it is that Amazon and other platforms are doing with less desirable inventory, so basically with the goods that are returned back. So what happens with online orders that are not kept and that are returned back to the retailers? What happens with that whole set of products, and how do we deal with that as an ethical issue? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I would like someone to confirm whether you're able to see and hear properly.
Yes, you can.
Manufacturers end up with billions of pounds of.
Is the sound okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's start from the beginning then. Okay.
Every year, retailers and manufacturers end up with billions of pounds of excess unsold inventory that they're sending straight to landfills. And for apparel, they often burn it.
And it's creating more than 5 billion pounds of waste a year in the US and over 15 million metric tons of carbon dioxide.
That's equivalent to all of the trash produced by 5 million Americans a year, or 5,600 fully loaded Boeing 747s. In Germany, a recent study found that 10 to 20% of clothing goes unsold, an estimated 230 million items there each year. And the amount of inventory waste is only growing as Amazon leads the way in bringing more shoppers online, where the rate of returns is 25% compared to just 9% for in-store purchases. Returns are piling up as walls of shame in warehouses everywhere. We wanted to find out, why is this problem so big, and what are major players like Amazon doing to cut back on the wasted inventory clogging our landfills and our planet?
We have spoken to over 120 retailers, and over half of them have said that they are disposing of over 25% of their customer returns. It's actually cheaper for them to just throw them away.
To understand why, you have to look at the complicated journey a returned item takes, from the moment you bring it back potentially all the way to a landfill.
It goes back through distribution center where goods can sit for a while, and then they end up going to liquidators and vendors, and then they get passed down to smaller regional wholesalers, and then they go from there to dollar stores, pawn shops, thrift stores, eBay, mom and pops at flea markets, and then they get to consumers in certain cases. And when goods are cheaper and used and have to go through that whole process, often it doesn't make economical sense, so they end up in landfills. And other types of items, if it's larger items like a used TV going through that process, it has a high likelihood of being damaged and destroyed and ends up in a landfill as well.
It's this expensive, complicated reverse logistics that keep more products from being resold or recycled.
Most organizations don't really inspect every single item and say, is this resellable, is it not? What level of effort would it take to get this back into a resellable condition? And that's why companies take kind of the easy route out and just say, well, let's just destroy this, and that way we can do that in bulk, and it's not taking up valuable time and resources from the organization that has to do other things.
And some types of products can't be resold, like open over-the-counter medicines. And some simply have no resale value, like DVDs sold on the international market.
Any DVD, once it's returned, the resale value is negligible to zero. And so in those cases, you didn't want that to flood the market and become a zero price point to compete with your brand new product. but at the same time, you didn't want to pay for it to return. So in those cases, we had markets where it was 100% in-market destruction, meaning we didn't take a single unit back.
Amazon and other retailers won't publicly disclose how much inventory they destroy.
Let's acknowledge just for a fact that there's a lot of product waste. Obviously, that's true. We know that companies are getting rid of a lot of products because they're either out of date or they don't work, they're unfixable, and that adds to landfill mass. So the question would be for organizations is, well, how do we reduce that?
Amazon's answer is that it launched a program called Fulfilled by Amazon Donations in September. Donation is now the default option for all sellers when they choose how to dispose of their unsold or unwanted products stored in Amazon warehouses in the US and the UK. The donations program was launched after CBS reported earlier this year that a single Amazon facility sent 293,000 products to a garbage dump in just 9 months. After a French documentary found Amazon tossed 3 million TVs in 2018, the country vowed to outlaw the destruction of unsold consumer products by 2023. And the EU has an overarching packaging waste directive that sets guidelines for limiting waste from manufacturers and retailers. But in the US, experts say retailers are up against a relatively unregulated infrastructure around waste and recycling.
We have a waste infrastructure, particularly in the US, that is not consistent. There are no national recycling laws in place. There are some statewide initiatives, of course, but they are sporadic.
Apparel has the biggest problem with excess inventory, in part because of the current trend of fast fashion.
Apparel's a $2 trillion market, which is the largest consumer vertical. So it's much bigger than movies, bigger than music, bigger than books, although 30% of it never gets sold. And a lot of that ends up in landfills.
In 2014 compared to 2010, the average customer bought 60% more clothing, but kept each garment half as long. H&M reported in 2018 that it had $4.3 billion worth of unsold clothing, up 7% from the year before. It incinerates some of those clothes. Much of this is because unsold inventory is pulled to make way for the latest fashions.
So we've moved from a 2-season fashion year to a 50-season fashion year. New clothes coming out every week.
You don't want that prior season product available. It's going to really cannibalize your next wave of sales.
Burberry famously revealed last year that it incinerated unsold and returned products worth 28.6 million British pounds, a practice it's since stopped.
So the reason that very often these companies will incinerate products that are perfectly fine and good is because they don't want them out there in the marketplace, right? They don't want the brand to perceived as low cost. So examples, a lot of luxury sellers. A lot of luxury sellers will not allow their items to be in like a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls because they feel like, right or wrong, that it degrades the quality of the brand or the view of the brand.
But in some cases, incineration can actually be more sustainable than dumping clothes in a landfill.
In H&M's case, they have been recovering energy from that incineration process. So there are power plants, for example, that use energy from burning apparel products to input into their power plant.
The Maya Black Friday sale is on now, with 60% off selected home.
Just bear with me, guys, for a second until we fix the ad. Just a sec, few more seconds. Bear with me, bear with me. Right. Okay, we are going back.
Is secondary markets. This includes foreign countries, where unused goods are often donated or sold at steep discounts. World Vision is a major nonprofit that helps retailers donate their excess inventory. It says it received 84,000 pallets of goods and shipped them to 33 countries last year. Even in secondary markets, though, the waste can pile up, especially after China implemented its so-called national sword policy in 2018, limiting how much waste countries can export to Chinese landfills.
Southeast Asia in particular has borne the brunt of this, where waste is being shipped to these countries and you then start finding out that there are heaps of waste garments piling up on islands in Southeast Asia because they also don't have the infrastructure to deal with this volume.
Other secondary markets for unused goods to go are discount retailers like TJ Maxx and outlet stores, where returned and unsold merchandise is sent in bulk, marked down, and sold again. and the online equivalent of this.
So you can go to some of these third-party companies and buy things that have been returned, kind of almost like a salvage process. And the really fascinating thing is some of that ends up back on the Amazon Marketplace.
Amazon even has a separate program called Amazon Warehouse, which sells renewed goods at a discounted rate. And some retailers, like Apple, even include mandates about recycling and reusing in its contracts.
Any of Apple's products which are high value, and that's often what drives that in the first place, have to be returned to Apple, and they actually reuse as many of the components as possible. It also makes sure that their brand is not undermined by making its way onto secondary black markets.
H&M and others like Patagonia have also started programs to help more used clothing find a second home.
They will take trade-in Patagonia items, give you credit for it, and then they'll repost it for sale on their worn-wear site. And then there are other companies like Nike that have really been innovating on designing their product for circularity so that it's easier to recycle them and reuse them again.
The take-back systems in retailers such as H&M, where you're encouraged to take back your clothes, some of those will be put towards insulation for car seats, for housing.
Returns are a major reason why the apparel industry struggles so much with wasted inventory.
So in the apparel industry, they probably have it the hardest because it can be upwards of more than 50% or even nearly 100% of purchases are returned because you're buying 2 or 3 of the same item and then keeping the one that fits or looks best on you.
65–70% of what we return is because of fit and or style related things.
Boston-based TrueFit is trying to help with just that by using data and machine learning to better match a customer's fit and preferences so they order and return fewer items.
Our role in this was to organize billions of dollars of transactions from the retailers and thousands and thousands of brands feeding us their product data and consumers creating us profile. We have 130 million registered TrueFit users now who have shared with us, like, here's what I care about.
TrueFit works with major retailers like Walmart and Target.
Returns are going to go down and people are going to keep what they love because we're going to figure that out better, right? And the combination of both of those two things should make the production more efficient, and so you have less going into a landfill.
Nike has a feature on its app that uses your phone's camera to scan your feet with 13 data points to suggest the right shoe size. M. Taylor uses a similar concept. The Custom Clothing Fit app uses your phone's camera to measure 17 different body points that it claims are 20% more accurate than a professional tailor. And there's in-person options like FormCut, where customers get clothing size measurements after stepping into a 3D body scanner. Amazon is also tackling high apparel returns with Prime Wardrobe, a program launched in 2018 that lets you try up to 8 items before you buy them. A similar program is Rent the Runway, which eliminates returns by renting out clothing. And H&M just unveiled a line of conscious exclusive dresses and skirts available for rent. Google is also leveraging its massive amount of data to help its retail partners, like Macy's, Target, and Kohl's, understand what online shoppers want and cut down on returns and waste.
Google, on an aggregate level, has an understanding in a country or a geography what people are looking for. So getting that forecast right, how much product do you need, what should you be buying, what store should you be allocating it to?
Now, a handful of small companies have sprung up to help with the waste and help retailers save money. Optoro is one of them. It collects data on why returns come back, then optimizes next steps for its retail partners like Best Buy, IKEA, Target, and Staples.
Real time, it captures the value of that product in those markets, and then it captures the data on how much it would cost to get the good to each specific channel. And making sure that each item is connected to its next best home and not a landfill.
Some smaller companies have even made a business out of taking wasted inventory off bigger companies' hands and disposing of it for them. One such company, Stericycle, estimates it's destroyed or recycled 80 million pounds of unsold items for manufacturers and retailers. And some big names, like Nordstrom, are experimenting with end-to-end automatic sorting and inventory distribution, which it hopes will mean more efficient reselling of returned items, cutting down on wasted inventory.
Historically, you may find that solutions are very much segmented for fulfillment as distinct from sortation, as distinct from returns. And here at Nordstrom, we're taking a holistic approach for end-to-end solutions. And we're really excited to be the first retailer to adopt this combined technology.
Amazon is also using robots to increase the efficiency of its distribution centers and eventually reduce waste. It also has a massive amount of data on customer behavior. Amazon says its systems are constantly evaluating what its customers will want to buy, placing orders with vendors to ensure it stocks the proper amount of inventory.
Their technology can make predictions that says, hey, this product, there's going to be others that want it. There's demand for it. So if we get it back, and we get it back in the region where it was shipped, we actually think we're going to be able to ship it to a buyer in that same spot.
From automation to algorithms, the good news is big tools are being developed to help retailers and suppliers find more efficiency, and hopefully one day send fewer of their excess goods to landfills.
The trends are going in the right direction. There's great brands that are helping to lead the way, and there's regulations in certain cases, which we've seen more so in Europe, that have also helped guide people in the right direction.
If we can provide as consumers a demand for those more sustainable products, it becomes easier for them to do those jobs in improving those systems.
As we can see, unsold goods or returned goods are becoming a big issue, not only for the retailers that are selling those products, but for us as a society and our environment, where we can see those products just piling and piling up without actually having any reasonable solution how to deal with that. Okay, so as we are speaking, the technologies are being developed, and a lot of businesses are trying to work out how they can deal with this issue, not only because they feel responsible for it, but because in some regions, such as European Union, obviously, the governmental regulations are forcing these businesses to come up with a better way of managing unsold stock. And they are coming back with solutions that are going to be acceptable. Is there any question? No, all good? Okay. Sorry, was there someone trying to say something?
I said no yet.
No, oh good, okay, all good. So let's move on. So let's have a look at who is going to benefit from studying and understanding consumer behavior. Well, obviously marketing managers are going to be in that group, are people that are concerned with ethics of business and advocacy groups, public policy makers and regulators, naturally academics, people that are experts in that area, but also consumers and society overall. So what are marketing implications of consumer behavior? We can see that customer-oriented strategies are being developed and implemented as we speak. We can see that selecting a particular target market and developing products that are suitable for that market and preferred in those markets, also positioning products in a way that is going to make them desirable and promoting them through specific marketing communication messages that are well understood and appreciated by consumers, that bring in new pieces of information that are going to potentially affect someone's decision-making process by being well informed in regards to the pricing of the product and alternative options, and also how those products are delivered, and after being used, how those products are disposed of. Because today we're not talking about the whole chain of production and sales without actually thinking the last stage of those products' life cycles, where it's ending up on the either garbage pile or in a secondhand shop. So I did mention an alternative in the form of opportunity shops in Australia. And opportunity shops or op shops are those charity shops where people bring in their goods and then they're resold on the market because they still have usability and value for the market, but of course they're sold at much lower prices. So instead of buying, for example, a glass in a retailing store for $2 to $5, you can find it for 50 cents in an op shop. And while with clothing, it might be a little bit more personal, whether you want to wear someone's shirt or pants, with items such as pans and pots and sheets and towels, it might not be that important. So we can see that the second-hand market is growing exponentially. Also, there are certain countries where second-hand shops are actually popping up like mushrooms. They actually have a strong second-hand culture, and they are very much oriented towards those. Okay. So, just quick. Okay, so let's look at the important aspects of consumer behavior. We are going to look at the 5 W's: what, whether, why, when, where, how much, how often, and how long. And those are going to impact our purchasing decisions. We can look at consumer behavior, which basically involves the acquisition of products, the usage of those products, and disposal of those products. So we know that the psychological core is looking at internal processes and can potentially lead to changes in consumer behavior through affecting people's motivation, ability, and opportunity, exposure to information, attention, perception, and comprehension, memory and knowledge, and forming and changing attitudes. And you will notice that these are the topics of our coming lectures. So you will notice that these 4 aspects here are really, really relevant in the coming weeks. So we notice that consumer behavior is greatly affected by consumer culture, and consumer culture is typically a good predictor of what people are going to buy, how frequently they're going to buy it, and what they're going to do with once they stop using a product or a service. So think about your usage of textbooks. So textbook is a product that has value for more than one student. So for example, when people are printing these textbooks, it is not one pair of eyeballs that is going to look at that textbook. If that textbook is used in a library, then many eyeballs will read this textbook. If a student purchases a textbook, but then resells that textbook to another student or borrows a textbook to another student, that means that already few students have been benefiting from one single printout. So again, identifying those opportunities are very important aspect of consumer behavior, and the kind of insights will lead to effective marketing strategies and new tactics. So why are marketing strategies and tactics so important in this case? Well, obviously, understanding consumer behavior is only one side of the story, but being able to use that knowledge and those insights in creating suitable marketing strategies, relevant messages, and using that in leading consumers toward the right choices is the pathway that we will be exploring in coming weeks. Okay, are there any questions regarding this topic? Is everything clear here? Okay, if everything is clear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the topic for our major project. You are probably familiar with, well, I'm hoping that you're familiar with the very large farming industry in Australia, which is mostly focusing on cattle. But what we are going to look at now is what other opportunities there are, and why some of the other species are perceived the way they are perceived in this harsh environment. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background. So the topic for our major project are Australian camels. So now you're going to ask, who are Australian camels and what are camels doing in Australia? Well, when the continent was settled, the European settlers actually brought in camels from the Middle East in order to assist them in carrying cargo in those very remote areas that had very little access to fresh water. And as we know, camels are very good stock in specific regions, and that is Middle East, trained already to use to that useful work. And they brought caravans of camels, and they brought guides from specific countries, for example, Afghanistan, that were working as professional cargo carriers in Australia at that time. So let's have a look at what happened with camels afterwards. So once the camels were substituted with motor vehicles and trucks, there was no further use for them. And their guides were instructed to get rid of them, but they felt sorry for those animals and they let them go free. So animals actually created a new living environment in the Australian deserts for them, and they grow their population very, very quickly because they don't have any natural predators that are hunting camels in Australia. And at the same time, they're quite isolated. So they're very healthy. They're not exposed to any diseases. And they are competing with farmed cattle for the local resources, fresh food and water. So many farmers perceive Australian camels as pests. And very often there are even quotas given by the governments to destroy camels because they are using the resources that are paid by farmers for their own cattle. So let's have a look at this story. And if you have any questions afterwards, I'll be happy to answer.
In the middle of Western Australia, father and son Tim and Jack Carmody have a grim task ahead of them.
What we've got is Dad just trying to bring down with the plane and push them out into an open area, because in the mulga it gets a little bit harder to get to them.
Culling camels is part of daily life on this 405,000 hectare property, Prenty Station.
It started out in regular sort of mobs that I'd be expecting in summer, 13s, 14s, the occasional 35. But what I came across next just completely and utterly threw me. I went from seeing 35 to suddenly it was over 100 of them. 2. It was an overnight change where one day I was thinking I'll get close to the 100, and I'd ended up shooting 180 of them, and I proceeded to go up and up until I peaked out at 435 in a day, which is just some heavy and hard work.
Camels were introduced to Australia in the 1840s to help the early explorers open up the vast interior. By the turn of the 20th century, as many as 20,000 Arabian camels had been transported here. They're dromedaries, meaning they have just one hump. Around 2,000 handlers or cameleers also migrated. When trucks took over, camels were set free, and Australia now supports the largest wild population of dromedaries in the world.
Over the last few years, they've become basically plague proportions in the whole Central Australia.
There's estimated to be 1.2 million feral camels, with their numbers doubling every decade. They cause about $10 million damage each year to native vegetation, infrastructure and waterways.
Definitely in the last 12, 18 months here, you know, we've just absolutely been hammered by them. I think you can put that all down to the dry. I've never seen such poor, emaciated, you know, starving, perishing camels in my whole life.
And these ships of the desert have a phenomenal capacity to drain water destined for cattle.
Yeah, a camel, when it's thirsty, will be able to drink 100 litres, 200 litres. They'll just power through it, and that'll be a few minutes.
At Carnegie Station, manager Brendan Carew is also dealing with invading camels from the adjoining desert.
So we've just pulled up our solar pump and we're going to lower down a sub pump for the night just to catch up a bit of water here, because camels have been drinking the tank dry at the trough down there.
He's had to constantly check the main watering points and install backup systems to try to replace water the camels have drained. It's another burden in caring for cattle already struggling with the driest summer on record.
They'll come to the trough and they'll push the cattle away from the trough and they'll surround it, not let the cattle in, and just steal all the water for themselves. Because they're such a big animal, they drink so much water, and if they drink a trough dry, then they just smash it to pieces trying to find more water.
These large, thirsty browsers don't just cause problems on pastoral land.
We had big mama camel and they wrecked my friend.
Aboriginal communities have a love-hate relationship with the often overly friendly ferals, which damage sites of cultural significance and have little regard for property.
At times there can be up to 300 to 400 camels just walking into town. It's quite surreal.
There's too many camels in this community, in this Peterman area. Too many. We need to stop all them camels coming in.
In January this year, in South Australia's APY Indigenous lands, more than 3,000 were shot from the air in a major camel crackdown. There's long been talk of turning these carcasses into a commodity. But commercialisation is difficult and hasn't gained much traction.
I would definitely love to see commercialisation. I think just shooting anything or destroying anything and leaving it to rot is just wasteful. You know, everything should be treated as a resource. But having said that, in the absence of a market that's of scale, you know, that can actually deal with the numbers we're talking about, the immediate option is an aerial culling program.
In the last 5 years, I would have had well over 1,000 separate inquiries from 50 plus countries looking for everything from meat's the main one. Meat's 90% of the inquiries, but then you go into live export, you go into wool, you go into milk, you go into the hump fat, and all those sorts of things come from that. So there's numerous aspects of the camel and numerous countries that want camel meat.
Former camel catcher Paddy McHugh is all for a new industry. He travels regularly to the Middle East and is a camel broker of sorts.
We have a problem with camels in Australia, I'm not denying that, but shooting it will never work. You will never shoot the problem away. The only way to fix the problem, the only way, is to commercialise the industry.
Even if domestic and international markets were secured, camels would probably need to be farmed to ensure consistency of quality and supply.
A lot of the camels occur in very remote areas where there's no infrastructure, which is needed for them to be mustered and put on trucks and sent off to abattoirs and so on. So that is a major constraint. Also, the remoteness of the sites means that the transport costs are high. Now, camels can only be single-decked on trucks, so straight away the cost of transport is double that you would have for cattle.
The Western Australian government is looking at the viability of a camel abattoir at Kalgoorlie. Mobile abattoirs are another option.
Mobile abattoirs or central accumulation points would be a pretty good step towards making the camel marketable and lowering our transport costs.
They have to go in there with an overarching plan, build abattoirs, do some sort of culls, wild harvest, educate the masses, educate the farmers, educate the Aboriginal people on what to do. The industry is screaming out for this to happen.
There is another option too, camel milk.
People's first perception is, ugh, camel's milk, because it's so foreign to them. And then by the time they have their little taste, they go, oh, it tastes just like cow's milk, you know, slightly salter aftertaste.
There are several camel dairies from Queensland down to Victoria, and they've all based their milking herds on feral camels that have been caught from the wild and trained to cope with handling.
We had one camel where we could have her in a race and touching and everything within a week. Like, she was fine to be able to even touch the udder and start stimulating the udder within a week, where another camel, we've been working on her for about three months now.
The Bedouins have long believed in the healing power of camel milk, with its low lactose and low cholesterol. But with the industry here in its infancy, producers are learning as they go.
It's the agony and the ecstasy. So it is just when you think you're trucking along really well, you'll get a curveball.
Each animal only produces 5 to 6 litres a day, considerably less than dairy cows. And without the usual structures in place to transport and market the milk, the shelf price is more than $20 a litre, in line with the cost internationally.
In Dubai, for instance, where labour is low cost, retail prices are around about $15 Australian per litre, and in the US, where demand is strong and supply is short, retail prices are about $30 a litre.
Some producers are drying the milk into a powder so it has a longer shelf life and can be exported. Others are turning it into cheese and yoghurt, and even skincare.
In a land like Australia, we've got this animal that can survive, through pretty well anything, the worst things that our Mother Nature can throw at it, and we're shooting it. So, and yet it produces meat, it produces milk, it produces fat products for other stuff, hide, leather. So, it's an amazing animal.
So that will be our topic for the assignment. What do you think about the topic? A bit controversial, isn't it? So we have this resource, which is obviously widely available. Wild camels are roaming areas and are perceived as pests by farmers. And in order to control their numbers, they're using the culling technique, but at the same time, it's a wastage of meat and other opportunities for secondary industries that may be coming when farming camels. So I want you to think about this. I'm going to show you more videos after the activity. So now it's 4 o'clock. It will be 4 o'clock in 1 minute, and the activity will be available. So I want you to spend the next 15 minutes doing the activity, and we will continue with the session at 4:15. So is that all good, guys?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, see you in 15 minutes. Okay, so since everyone attempted the test, hopefully, and I can see the feedback is positive. If there are no questions, are there any questions regarding the weekly activities? Sorry? Orange Meg, are you having a question or?
No, sorry.
No, okay, she's just saying something to her baby. Okay, all good.
I have
a
question here.
Yes, Terembag,
I am
do you mind
Terembag,
switching off your camera and asking your question?
Okay, so hi.
Hello.
So this is what is the your marking for this kind of quizzes? What are you? Is it
the
we
weighting
getting some
of
point for this?
Yes. Okay. So you will see each question has a little mark on the above, for example, 0.2 or 0.5. So each question is a very, very small friction, but all together, all activities together account for 20% of the overall mark. So instead of having one large final exam, which is 20%, we have smaller activities, which are basically, splitting the textbook into smaller segments. So instead of, answering the whole book at once, you're basically having 2-3 pages of the textbook included. But it's not only about the textbook, it's about the topic itself. So it's reflective of additional readings, discussions that we have in class, case studies that I'm showing, and etc. So each question is a very, very, very tiny amount, but all together activities will represent 20% of the overall mark.
Just today is fine. I just done it's no problem. In the future, well, maybe so during the lecture, to be honest, I could be on and off. Can I do it after class or no? Is it
yes.
possible
So the activity will remain open until midnight. But I wanted the first activity to be done in class because I needed your feedback to let me know whether there are any technical issues, whether there are any problems, whether somebody was struggling with the connection, So only the first one will be like this. From next week, now that we all done it and we know how to do it, it's going to be a little bit more flexible.
Okay, yeah, thanks, thank you very much. It's a little bit still important, right? So we trying to get the points.
Yes, because this is the substitute. This is the final exam substitute, so it is important, and it's intentionally divided into smaller sections, so you don't have to answer the whole textbook, but at the same time, they are designed to make you think. So it's not all about repeating what you read somewhere. It's about using your wits to figure out what is the right answer. For example, when we're talking about ethics in consumer behavior, it's more about your own sense. What is it that you wouldn't like the companies to do to you that you consider as unethical, or what you consider as ethical. So, yeah. Okay, so
thank you so much, Professor.
No worries. We see that Bayarma has posted an invitation for a group. So, yeah, so Diamond, no, you can't see the marking. The marks are released later on. So they're not released immediately. Diamond, is that clear?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, so
one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you choose the group yourself, or we have to make ourselves?
My very strong recommendation is that you invite people into your own group and you form your own group. But if you can't do it, I will do it for you. But my recommendation is that you do it on your own. If I form a group, you can't change the group, right? Then it's too late. But if you see that you can't work with someone, from the initial meeting, then you can potentially change the group. Okay, there is another benefit of doing this in a virtual environment, and that is, as you can see here, Zoom room for practice, teamwork, consultations, and this link is available 24/7, so you can basically have team meetings using this link, and you can start bonding literally from day one. So my suggestion is invite people that you have found when they introduce themselves to be having complementary skills, to be someone that you want to work with, and have a little meeting there. And after those virtual meetings, you can decide whether you want to stay in a group or not. So, that link is like a hangout place for you guys. So literally a virtual room that is available all the time. And I strongly recommend try and form your own group. If you can't, I'll put you in a team. But no complaints then, right? I'm not responsible for your team. Right. Okay. Any other questions?
One more question here.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
How long time we have to get formed the group? 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I would like to have the groups finished by next week, because then you will have 2 weeks to prepare for your first assignment. So I strongly suggest that you look at other students who are here and try to select those that you might find, a suitable candidate to be in your team.
Okay.
Right. Okay, guys, so good luck with the team formation. When you are sending me notification about the teams, please state the name of the unit, the name and name of the unit, the type of assessment for which you are sending, because sometimes students make a typo about the unit code or unit name. And then they say, this is our group, but they don't say for which assessment they're sending a group, because if the group changes, I have to keep track of all of that. So please send the name of the unit, the code of the unit, and the assessment type for which you are reporting your group members. Send the official names of the students. So don't send me Sylvia or Alicia. I don't work with nicknames. I need a full proper name of the student and their student number. So when they're sending these emails, I expect to see a professionally written message which contains all those details. So I hope that's clear. Is that clear? Is there anything?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So full names, proper names, student numbers, everything that is. Sorry, somebody is making background noise, so I'm trying to figure out who that is and to mute that person. Yeah, okay. Now it's muted. I don't know who was it, but thank you for switching that off. Okay, so let's go back to our topic. So Australian camels are obviously a really controversial topic, and that brings us to our next topic, the ethics. So very often we will see, just as we looked at the example of Amazon and other retailers, what they do with their unsold products, the returned items. Now we are looking at what happens with camels and whether these animals could actually bring value to the market. We've seen advocating for the industry to be organized at that level, because having an industry behind can provide a lot of lobbying opportunities. And also when industry is organized, we can see that exports, also regulations for transport or handling can be quicker issued and also publicly available. So transparency is really important when a new industry is being formed. So let's have a look at the dangers and opportunities of this industry. And here is another video from ABC. Let's have a look.
In the middle of Western Australia, father and son Tim and Jack Carmody have a grim task ahead of them.
What we've got is Dad just trying to bring down with the plane, and push them out into an open area, because in the mulga it gets a little bit harder to get to them.
Culling camels
This is the video that we already seen. Sorry, I'm going to another video. Just a second. Right. So I'm showing another video. So there are several links that will be available after our class on Moodle. And all these links are obviously going to be there. So this is a video from BBC.
We'd kept the camels herded together. Now it was time for the trickiest part of the whole roundup, getting them into the holding pen.
This is the sort of key moment, isn't it, really?
This is the key moment, yeah.
You're putting your seatbelt on?
Yeah, my daughters insist because I roll over quite often.
Wonderful.
Okay, let's go, fellas.
Where are you, Alan? Where are you?
Ian's been mustering animals out here for more than 40 years. It's difficult and dangerous. He'd managed to round up 15 of the camels. Ian was going to sell them on to the Middle East for their meat.
They don't taste any different to beef. You've eaten it, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah, and so there's no difference between camel and beef. In fact, to a lot of people who live on camel like we do, we prefer it to beef.
And so are all the camels that you catch and sell on sold for meat?
No, not all of them. Quite a few of them are sold for riding camels, and also for like the Saudis are always interested in them, but they're looking for a specific camel. Like I've got a bloke who wants beauty camels at the moment. Like these bulls are no good. They like the cows because they're thin heads, but the cows have got to have their lips hanging. For what reason, I don't know.
It may seem harsh for these camels to be rounded up because they're pretty or to be sold on for meat, but few experts doubt that camel numbers need controlling, and Ian thinks a roundup's more humane than the alternative.
They just shoot them and they lay on the ground, that's it. Then nothing is done with them. We don't know whether there's any system of where they might go along and check to see if they're dead or whatever they are. So they might lay there for a few days.
What would you like to see happen?
I'd like to see them come into a yard like this and be sent away and sold as meat or riding camels or whatever else you can pull out.
So as you can see, there is an alternative to culling camels, and obviously what we are seeing is the emergence of a new industry that is happening as we speak. So there is another story which is looking at opportunities for camels. So there is a website that is showing the opportunities for dairy industry from camel's milk. There is a big advocate for preserving camels and actually creating this industry in the form of a veterinarian, Margie Bale, which is working with camels at the moment. She was actually invited by some farmers to check for the health of those animals. And what she's claiming is that these animals are amazing in the sense of health because they're isolated, they don't get exposed to some of the diseases that might be affecting camels in Middle East. And as a matter of fact, after a recent disease-ridden period, the Middle Eastern traders actually bought a certain number of camels from Australia as disease-free camels, and they brought them back to Middle East. So there is an extremely high number of opportunities how we can use those camels. And what you are going to do as a team is to use one of those opportunities for your marketing plan. But before you move on, you have to talk to consumers and see how willing they are to use camel products and what kind of barriers and obstacles are there in the minds of consumers why they wouldn't use camel products. So you need to overcome those. One of the really important aspects of camel products is that they have higher nutritional value and better medicinal aspects. There are claims that they can be used to control diseases such as diabetes, for example, and also in some cases people that are having issues within their digestive system, that the camel milk is easier to digest and it's better for these kind of people. There is also a story about the usage of camel meat. For example, this lovely smiling gentleman who comes from Ethiopia, he claims that there is a demand, from Somalia, he claims that there is a demand in a Somali community, and he's actually advocating for using camels and managing stock. We can see the dairy industry is also a big opportunity. So I do strongly suggest that you read these stories and potentially learn more about this. So it's really up to you whether you want to get informed better or you just want to get by with this assessment. Okay, I just want to mention that there are culling quotas. So each of these, each of the Australian states are having a certain number of camels already designated for culling per year. So farmers cannot go and kill all camels. They have a specific quota, how many of them they can destroy per season. But there are many opportunities that these animals are bringing. So let's have a look at why camel milk is so expensive.
Camel milk can cost you $30 per litre. Compare that to cow's milk, and it's almost 30 times the price. But for hundreds of years, camels have been used to produce milk, yogurt, and even cheese. So why would anyone milk a camel? And what makes the milk so expensive? Camel milk may not be quite as popular as cow milk. Compared to the 600 million metric tons of cow milk produced worldwide, only about 3 million tons of camel milk are produced each year. However, camel milk is an important staple across Africa and the Middle East, and some cultures rely on it. Somalia and Kenya alone produce 64% of the world's camel milk. Camelicious in Dubai has over 6,000 camels on its farm and produces 4 million litres of milk each year.
And as you know, the people in the Middle East connected with the camels for transport and for food. And their main diet was camel milk and dates. So it's a long history. The demand for camel milk increasing day by day, and we are facing now a challenge which is to meet the demand because the supply is less than the demand.
This demand has kept the price high, and camel milk's profile as a new health food has boosted sales. It's slightly lower in saturated fat, has 10 times the vitamin C, and has more calcium and potassium than cow's milk. These benefits have led many people to start using it as an alternative medicine, despite very limited evidence. Online celebrity endorsements have also led more and more people to try it. While new camel farms are appearing across the world, the popularity is still limited. And in Europe, there are still 12,000 cows for every single camel. But even if you do have a lot of camels, it's not exactly easy work to get them milk.
Roughly we are milking 1,300 camels twice a day, so it's a very intense work. Lots of people are included into the job. So when camels are arriving here, they go through a very strict quarantine procedure where we check them for different diseases. Whenever needed, we treat them, and we start training them for the milking parlor. It's very crucial that we provide a very relaxed, very calm atmosphere for the camels during milking to be able to release the milk. So we had to train the camel to be able to milk them without the calf. So that was a very intensive work, and every camel is different. So for some camels, the training itself for the milking parlor takes 2-3 days, but for some camels it took weeks.
Once this training period is over and your camels are producing milk, you still don't get anywhere near as much as you would from a cow.
One cow can give around like 50 liters per day, while the camel milk can give 6 to 7 liters. The cows in 3 years will give more than 50,000 liters, while in the camels in 3 years you will get maximum 4 to 7,000 liters.
Unlike the dairy industry, where male calves are often killed and disposed of, every camel must be kept near its young to continue producing milk, meaning that 2 animals will need to be kept fed and healthy to produce just 7 liters of milk each day.
Camel milk is costly. In addition to that, the feed cost. We are here at Camelicious giving our camels natural and fresh alfalfa hay, in addition to wheat bran only. We are not giving any concentrates or any feed additives.
So after all this work, what does the milk actually taste like?
Smells like milk. Yeah, it does have a different taste to it.
It's a bit salty, I would say, saltier than normal milk, but it's quite creamy.
I don't hate it. It's almost like salty.
I would say it doesn't taste like regular milk. I would have it again.
As this milk grows in popularity, and selective breeding leads to camels that produce more milk, the price may come down. But for now, camel milk remains an expensive luxury.
Camel is a different species, so we didn't want and still don't want to turn them into a milking machine because we are thinking long term. So we would like to have a long production life here with these camels on this farm.
So that is quite an interesting animal and a lovely story how camels can be trained. Do you guys have any questions?
So yeah, I have a question, Professor.
Yes, go ahead.
So, well, first of all, Middle Eastern people are very attentive for their health. So that's what is practically and theoretically I have learned and understand because they pay good money for quality product, and traditionally they have like background done research for very organic milk products from camel, things like that. Okay, first of all, so this video is our subject to the group assessment. This video.
Yes, that is correct. And in addition to what we are seeing, so these videos are only a way of informing you about the opportunities for this industry. There will be another document that I'm going to share with you, which is providing instructions. So this document will be available on Moodle for you guys to read it. And it's providing a little bit of a background and also provides instructions regarding the attitude and how you should form your marketing recommendations. So it provides you with the structure of your assessment and marketing criteria, how you're going to be marked, and etc. So as you can see, that is a very detailed document and is going to help you get through the assessments. My suggestion is read the marking criteria, see how you're going to be marked, and if you have any questions, we can discuss them next week.
Clear, thank you.
Yeah, all good. Excellent. Is there any other question regarding the topic? No? Okay. Let's move on to our next topic, which is ethics. And as we can see, there are a lot of ethical issues that we are considering in marketing and specifically in buyers' behavior. So for example, we can see that marketing ethics and consumer ethics may be different. For example, when it comes to growing food in a sustainable agricultural models, we can see that a lot of companies have used that to brand their coffee as better coffee coming from fair work or from sustainable sources than a regular coffee that comes from large corporations. In the same view, as consumers, we can see that, for example, camel milk, which is very expensive, could be beneficial for the sustainability of those species in Australia if we start buying camel products, for example. So if the demand for camel products starts to grow, then instead of the culling processes, there will be more developed culture in farming camels, and that means they will be adopted into farms, introduced to a farming model, and in this environment they will provide with opportunities for farmers to generate income. Okay, so I want you to now look at the other aspect, at how companies and brands are using some other aspects of their product cycle to create a beneficial aspect so people would prefer their products. I'm going to show you the ad from Tresemme, and after showing the ad, we can discuss how they what kind of message they're sending.
Tresemme bottles are now made with Australian recycled plastics and are recyclable. Tresemme, the same professional quality, restyled for the planet.
So what we are seeing in this particular ad is nothing that says about the quality of product, the benefits of using that product, or even the size of the packaging. Everything said in this ad is that the plastic in that packaging is recycled, and that this is better for the planet and better for Australia, obviously. So we can see that the company has selected one singular aspect of their packaging and introduced that as a unique selling proposition of their product. So they're not saying our hair conditioners or shampoos are better than competitors, but they're saying their plastic bottles are recycled, and therefore you should be buying this brand because it's beneficial for the planet the way they're recycling the plastic packaging. So the question here is whether this practice makes sense in the minds of consumers and whether it's ethical to do and say so. Okay, so let's look at the aspect of marketing ethics. We can see that very often there are certain acquisition controversies which are relatable to materialistic behavior, addictive and compulsive behavior, consumer theft of products, black markets where fake products are being sold, or targeting the vulnerable segment of consumers that are affected by misleading messages. And then we have consumption controversies, for example, consumption of forbidden substances or underage drinking and smoking. We can see that idolized self-image may be driving the consumption of specific products, and we can see that even some dependency diseases such as compulsive gambling may be the result of these consumption pressures. So overeating and obesity, which is happening around the world, and privacy issues. And we can see disposition controversies. For example, products that still function, but people are disposing of them because they're not in vogue anymore. For example, replacing smartphones every 2 years, just because you can get a new smartphone from the telecom provider, not because your phone is broken, or products that no longer function, but may create a huge wastage problem. For example, things as fitted carpet are one of those products that do not get dissolved after a while. They still are going to be piled up on the landfill after 20, 50, 70 years because they are made of durable materials that cannot be resolved. So unless we come with technology that is assisting in getting rid of those products. Okay, so I want to take you very quickly to the next concept, and that is materialistic behavior that is occurring among consumers. So this is happening not only in the developed economies, but in developing economies as well. And we can see that the issue can be relatable to media exposure of inappropriate messages that are actually enforcing wrong cultural values. And that materialistic approach may be affecting societies on many different levels. So I want you to look at this video, which is 5 minutes and 36 seconds long, and we are going to wrap up our lecture at the end of the video.
Every day, Americans are bombarded with hundreds of messages suggesting that the good life is attainable through the goods life by making lots of money and spending it on products that claim to make us happy, loved, and esteemed. On the news shows, we hear a near constant refrain from economists and politicians about the importance of consumer spending and economic growth. And around $150 billion are spent most years to embed consumer messages in every conceivable space, from TV shows and websites to public bathrooms and escalator handrails. Lately, marketers have even been paying actors to drop sales pitches into conversations in bars and city parks. But commercialization and consumerism also reach deeper, worming their way into people's psyches and encouraging them to organize their lives around higher salaries and owning more stuff. Unfortunately, this can come at a high price for the well-being of both people and the planet. Research consistently shows that the more that people value materialistic aspirations and goals, the lower their happiness and life satisfaction, and the fewer pleasant emotions they experience day to day. Depression, anxiety, and substance abuse also tend to be higher among people who value the aims encouraged by consumer society. Strong materialistic values also influence our social relationships and thereby affect other people's well-being. Scientists have found that materialistic values and pro-social values are like a seesaw. As materialistic values go up, Pro-social values tend to go down. This helps explain why people act in less empathic, generous, and cooperative ways when money is on their minds. When people are under the sway of materialism, they also focus less on caring for the earth. The same type of seesaw is at work here. As materialistic values go up, concern for nature tends to go down. Studies show that when people strongly endorse money, image, and status, they are less likely to engage in ecologically beneficial activities like riding bikes, recycling, and reusing things in new ways. Clearly, if we hope to have a happier, more socially just, and more ecologically sustainable world, then we need to develop ways to diminish the power of materialistic values in our personal lives and in society. Two basic principles for change can help frame the way forward. First, we need to understand what causes people to prioritize materialistic values. For instance, studies show that people focus more on material things when they feel insecure. So instead of buying a new handbag or power tool the next time you've had a blow to your self-esteem, consider a different coping strategy, like spending time with friends or taking a walk outside. Scientists also know that the more that people are exposed to the media, the more they prioritize materialistic values. A couple of ways to diminish the onslaught of consumer messages are to use ad block to hide ads on the internet or to hit mute when commercials play on TV. But these steps can only take us so far. We also need to get active and start to remove advertising from public spaces and from our children's schools so that people aren't exposed to materialistic messages so often. The second principle for change involves promoting intrinsic values for growing as a person, being close to one's family and friends, and improving the broader world. The research shows that intrinsic values not only promote personal, social, and ecological well-being, but can also act to immunize people against materialism. It's that seesaw again. As intrinsic values go up, materialistic values tend to go down. So part of the trick is to build a life that expresses your intrinsic values. That might involve spending more time with people you care about, finding meaningful work, even if it pays less, and taking part in volunteer opportunities for causes you care about. But again, changing our lifestyles is not enough. We also need to advocate for policies that promote intrinsic values. For example, countries like France and Bhutan have recognized that they can't only focus on GDP and other measures of economic growth. Now they are starting to regularly assess citizens' well-being and sense of connection to their communities so as to develop policies that truly encourage these intrinsic values. Similar efforts are underway in some parts of the United States, but they need more support. The grip that consumerism and commercialism have on our world can seem inescapable, and there are certainly powerful forces that push materialistic values on us. But by making changes in our personal lives and by working for broader societal changes, we can break the hold of materialism and be freer to live our intrinsic values. That, in turn, would help us to take important steps toward greater personal well-being, a more humane society, and a more sustainable world.
So that will be the end of our lecture today. Are there any questions, guys?
No, thank you.
No, all good? Okay. So I hope you enjoyed the topics we covered today. We will continue next Monday, have the rest of the week. Have a relaxing rest of the week if you can. Don't stress too much. Enjoy this wonderful weather. And if you have any questions or if you have managed to form a group, please send me an email. So one email, decide who's going to be the communication officer in your team and send that person, the communication officers, should send one email per group by stating the unit name and code, the names of the students as enrolled into Moodle, and their student numbers, and also for which project you are sending the group members. Good luck with the group work. Next week, we are going to discuss the instructions document. And if you haven't had a chance to complete the weekly activity, please do that by midnight. So it will be available until midnight, and then it will be shut down. It won't be available any longer. Please keep in mind that you can do these activities only while they're open, and there is only one chance to do it. So only one attempt. They can't be reopened and you can't retake them. Okay, so that will be all for today. If you have any questions, go ahead, shoot.
Thank you.
All good. See you next Monday. Have a lovely rest of the week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye. See ya. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.